The great ship moved slowly through the darkness of space. Its name was the UNS Horizon, and it carried the hopes of 8 billion people. Captain Lee Yuna stood at the bridge window and watched the station grow larger. It was beautiful in a cold way. Metal and glass twisted together like frozen music. Lights blinked in patterns she did not understand. First contact with the docking authority, her communications officer said. "They are guiding us in." Yuna nodded. Her heart beat fast, but her face showed nothing. She had trained for this moment for 15 years. Earth had trained for this moment for 3 centuries, and now, finally, humanity would take its place among the stars. Behind her, Ambassador Park Tae-ho reviewed his notes one last time. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and calm eyes that had seen much. He had been a diplomat for 40 years. He had ended wars and built peace between nations that had hated each other for generations. But this was different. This was not about nations. This was about species, Ambassador Yuna said without turning. "We are approaching the Grand Hall." Tae-ho put down his notes and joined her at the window. The station filled their entire view now. Ships from dozens of worlds floated around it like fish around a reef. Some were smooth and silver. Others were rough and dark. One looked like a living thing, with skin that pulsed with soft light. "Beautiful," Tae-ho said quietly. "Terrifying," Yuna replied. He smiled. "Those two things are often the same." The docking was smooth. The doors opened, and humanity stepped onto the station of the Galactic Accord for the first time. The air smelled strange. Clean, but with something underneath. Something alive. A group waited for them. 12 figures, each one different from the others. Some stood on 2 legs, like humans. Others floated. One seemed to be made entirely of light. At the front stood a tall being with silver skin and eyes like deep pools of water. This was High Arbiter Velthus of the Mirani Collective. He had lived for 6,000 years. To him, human civilization was like a child's first drawing. "Welcome," Velthus said. His voice was smooth like silk. "The Council of 12 receives the delegation from Earth." Tae-ho bowed in the human way. "High Arbiter, honored counselors. Humanity thanks you for this invitation. We come with open hands and hopeful hearts." Velthus tilted his head slightly. His expression did not change, but something moved in those ancient eyes. Amusement, perhaps? Or pity? "You are young," he said. "Your species. Your civilization. 10,000 years? Yes? We have records older than your entire history. But youth is not a crime. Come, the council will hear you." They walked through halls that seemed to go on forever. The walls showed images of worlds Tae-ho had never seen. Mountains of crystal. Oceans of fire. Forests that grew upside down. Each image was a reminder. Humanity was small. Humanity was new. Humanity knew nothing. The Grand Hall was a circle of seats rising up like a bowl turned inside out. Each seat held a counselor. Each counselor represented a species that had conquered the stars when humans still lived in caves. At the center was a platform where speakers stood. Tae-ho took his place on that platform. He felt very alone. "Speak," Velthus said from his seat high above. Tae-ho cleared his throat. "Honored Council, humanity has dreamed of this moment since we first looked up at the night sky. We saw the stars and wondered who might live among them. Now we know, and we are humbled." The council watched. Some leaned forward with interest. Others seemed bored already. "We do not come as conquerors," Tae-ho continued. "We do not come as beggars. We come as neighbors who wish to learn. We bring gifts. Not weapons or demands, but the things that make us who we are." He gestured, and his team brought forward their offerings. Music from every culture on Earth. Art that had taken lifetimes to create. Stories passed down through hundreds of generations. Scientific discoveries made through sacrifice and wonder. "These are the treasures of our world," Tae-ho said. "We share them freely, and we ask only for the chance to learn from you in return. To trade ideas, to build friendship, to stand beside you as partners in this great universe." Silence followed his words. Then, from somewhere high in the seats, came a sound. A soft sound. A chuckle. Counselor Dreth of the Corvani Empire leaned back in his seat. He was a broad creature with 4 arms and skin like old leather. His people had ruled 1,000 worlds for 1,000,000 years. Charming, he said. Truly charming. The young ones always come with such pretty words. Partners. Friendship. He made a sound that might have been a laugh. Do you understand where you are, human? This council has guided the galaxy since before your ancestors climbed down from trees. We have seen 1,000 species rise and fall. 1,000 young races come to us with hope in their eyes. He spread all 4 arms wide. You are children. Clever children, perhaps. But children still. You will sit. You will watch. You will learn. And maybe in 1,000 years, you will begin to understand how small you truly are. Tejo's face did not change. His voice remained calm. We are happy to learn, Counselor. We ask only for the chance. Elthus raised one silver hand. The Council has decided humanity will be granted observer status. You may attend sessions. You may watch and learn. But you will not vote. You will not speak unless asked. This is the way of things. Ito, Captain Yuna, clenched her fists. But she said nothing. Tejo bowed again. We accept with gratitude. Later on the horizon, the human delegation gathered in the conference room. The mood was quiet. Not defeated, but thoughtful. They laughed at us, said Dr. Beek Sung-ho, the mission's science advisor. His young face was tight with anger. We offered them everything, and they laughed. They had been laughing at younger species for millions of years, Tejo said. He poured himself tea and sat down slowly. It is all they know, so what do we do? Yuna asked. Tejo sipped his tea. We watch. We learn. We wait. For how long? He looked out the window at the station, at the ships, at the cold and beautiful stars. For as long as it takes for them to stop laughing, or for as long as it takes for us to stop caring whether they do. Yuna sat down beside him. And if they never stop? Tejo smiled. It was a small smile, but there was something in it that had not been there before. Something quiet and strong. And we will build something that makes their laughter meaningless. The horizon floated in the darkness, small against the vast station. Inside, humanity began to wait. 3 years passed like water through fingers. Humanity watched. Humanity learned. And humanity grew very, very quiet. Ambassador Park Tejo attended every session of the council. He sat in his observer seat and took notes. He never spoke unless asked, and he was almost never asked. The counselors forgot he was there most days. He became like furniture. Part of the room, but not part of the conversation. He learned much in those 3 years. He learned that the Corvani and the Mirani had hated each other for 200,000 years. He learned that the Vethani, the beings made of light, had not spoken to anyone in 6 centuries. He learned that the council moved slowly because everyone was afraid. Afraid of change. Afraid of losing power. Afraid of each other. And he learned that the galaxy was dying. Not quickly. Not in any way the council wanted to admit. But the energy that powered their great civilizations was running out. The stars they harvested were growing cold. The resources they mined were becoming scarce. In 1,000 years, maybe 2,000, the great engines would stop. The lights would go out, and the proud species of the council would fade into darkness. Everyone knew. No one spoke of it until the crisis came to the outer rim. It started small. A mining colony lost power. Then a shipping route went dark. Then an entire sector declared emergency status. The energy grid that connected 100 worlds began to fail. And the council finally had to talk about what they had been ignoring. Tejo watched the debate from his seat. It went on for days. Each counselor blamed the others. Each species protected its own interests. Old treaties were cited. Old grudges were remembered. Solutions were proposed and rejected because accepting them would mean admitting weakness. On the 5th day, Dr. Kim Hanna arrived on the station. She was young for a scientist of her rank. Only 42, with sharp eyes and hair cut short for practicality. She had spent 15 years studying stars, not the way the council species studied them, as resources to be drained, but as living things with patterns and rhythms. She had found something. "Ambassador," she said when they met in the human quarters, "I think I can help." Tejo looked at her notes. He did not understand all the mathematics, but he understood enough. You can harvest energy without killing the stars. More than that, her eyes were bright with excitement. The council drains stars dry because they do not understand the cycle. Stars breathe, Ambassador. They pulse. If you harvest during the exhale and rest during the inhale, you can take energy forever without ever running out. You are certain? I have tested it on 14 different star types. The math is solid. The theory is sound. She paused. It would take 10 years to build the infrastructure, but it would solve the crisis permanently. Tejo was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "They will not listen. They have to listen. Millions of lives depend on this. They have not listened to us for 3 years. Why would they start now?" But Hannah was stubborn. She had not come all this way to be ignored. She requested a hearing, and because the crisis was severe enough, the council granted one. She stood on the central platform where Tejo had stood 3 years before. The counselors looked down at her from their high seats. Some seemed curious. Most seemed annoyed at the interruption. "Honored Council," she began. "I am Dr. Kim Hannah of Earth. I am here to offer a solution to the energy crisis in the Outer Rim." She explained her discovery. She showed her data. She drew diagrams and ran simulations. She spoke for 2 hours, and when she finished, she waited for questions. The silence stretched. Then High Arbiter Velthus spoke. His voice was kind, the way an adult is kind to a child who has drawn a picture. "Creative work, Dr. Kim, truly. The imagination of your species is remarkable." "It is not imagination," Hannah said. Her voice stayed calm, but Tejo could see her hands shaking. "It is science. Tested and proven. Proven on your small human ships. Yes." Velthus smiled gently. "But the systems of the Accord are vast, complex. There are factors you cannot understand. Political considerations. Historical agreements. The energy grid has functioned for 800,000 years. We cannot remake it based on the theories of a species that has traveled the stars for less than a century." "Then at least review the data. Have your own scientists examine it," Counselor Dreth laughed. It was not a cruel laugh. It was worse than that. It was the laugh of someone who had already forgotten she was there. "Charming," he said. "Let me explain something, child. The Corvani Empire has scientists who have studied stellar mechanics for longer than your species has existed. If there was a better way to harvest stars, we would have found it. Your proposal is noted. Perhaps in a few centuries, when you have learned more, you can try again." He waved one of his 4 hands. Dismissal, complete and final. Hannah stood very still. "You are making a mistake." The council does not make mistakes. The council adapts. Now, shall we return to the actual discussion? Tejo watched Hannah walk back to the observer seats. Her face was blank. Her steps were steady, but something had broken behind her eyes. That night, she found him in the observation lounge, staring out at the stars. "They did not even look at the data," she said. Her voice was flat, empty. "They did not care that it could work. They just did not want it to come from us." Tejo nodded slowly. "No, they did not. What do we do?" He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "We save the data. We remember this day. And we keep working." "For what?" "They will never listen to us. Never. Perhaps not." He turned to face her. "But someday, someone will need to rebuild what they have broken. And when that day comes, we will be ready." Advisor Beek Sung Ho joined them at the window. He had aged in 3 years. His hair was grayer, his face more lined. He had been watching the council too, and he had seen the same things Tejo had seen. "They will never see us," Beek said quietly. "Not truly. To them, we will always be children playing at civilization." Tejo nodded. then perhaps we should stop asking them to look. What does that mean? The ambassador did not answer right away. He watched the stars. He thought about his children back on Earth, growing up in a world that dreamed of being part of something greater. He thought about all the humans who had worked and sacrificed to reach this moment, and he thought about what it meant to be ignored. It means, he said finally, that we have been trying to earn a seat at their table. But maybe we should build our own table instead. Hannah looked at him. That would take everything we have. Yes, it might fail. Yes, but at least it would be ours. Tejo smiled. It was the same small smile he had worn 3 years ago. The same quiet strength. Yes, he said. At least it would be ours. Outside, the stars burned on, patient and eternal, waiting to see what humanity would choose. The plague came without warning. They called it the silken rot because of what it did to the skin. It started as silver threads that spread across the body like frost on glass. Beautiful, almost, until it reached the organs, until it reached the brain. Then the screaming started. Then the dying. It hit the Corvani first. A single ship returning from deep space brought it to their homeworld. Within a week, 10,000 were dead. Within a month, 10 million. The great hospitals of the Corvani Empire filled with bodies, their ancient science could not find a cure. Then it spread. The Mirani fell next. Their silver bodies blackened and cracked. Their pools of water became pools of death. High Arbiter Velthos watched his people die and could do nothing to stop it. 3 species. 7 homeworlds. 1 billion lives lost in less than a year. The council met in emergency session, but their meetings were short and afraid. Old enemies would not share research. Proud species would not admit weakness. And all the while, the dying continued. On Earth, Secretary General Odahai watched the reports come in. She was a small woman with iron in her spine and steel in her eyes. She had led the United Earth nations through to global crises. She knew how to make hard choices. We have to help, she said. Her advisors looked at her with doubt. They laughed at us, one said. They dismissed our science. They called us children, as Dehai said. They did. And now their children are dying. She ordered the ships prepared. Dr. Choi Yoonji led the medical team. She was a virologist, one of the best on Earth. She had cured diseases that had killed millions. She had worked in the worst conditions, in places where hope had died. She did not care about politics or pride. She cared about saving lives. The human fleet arrived at the Corvani homeworld carrying vaccines, medical supplies, and 300 doctors. The Corvani authorities did not want to accept the help. Their pride would not allow it. But their people were dying by the thousands every day, and pride was becoming a luxury they could not afford. We accept your assistance, the Corvani administrator said. His voice was cold. But do not expect gratitude. We do not expect anything, Captain Lee Yuna replied. We are here to help. Nothing more. Yoonji and her team went to work. The conditions were terrible. Corvani medicine was advanced in some ways, but primitive in others. They had never faced a plague like this. Their immune systems, so different from human ones, had no defense against the silken rot. But Yoonji saw patterns they had missed. Human eyes noticed details that Corvani eyes overlooked. Human minds connected dots that had seemed unconnected. In 3 weeks, she had isolated the cause. In 6 weeks, she had developed a treatment. In 2 months, the dying stopped. The Corvani homeworld was saved. Yoonji did not rest. She took her research to the Mirani worlds. She worked with their scientists, shared her findings freely, and helped them adapt the cure for their biology. She slept for hours a night and ate, standing up. She lost weight and gained gray hair, but she saved them. When it was over, 3 billion lives had been lost. But without humanity's help, the number would have been 10 times higher. Ambassador Park Tae-ho attended the next council session. He expected some acknowledgement, not celebration, not praise, just acknowledgement that humanity had helped when help was needed. Councillor Dreth stood to speak. The great Corvani leader looked thinner than before. His world had been devastated. His people had been humbled. Surely, Teho thought. Surely he would say something. The council recognizes the end of the Silken Rock crisis, Dreth said. His voice was formal, empty of emotion. The strength of the Galactic Accord has been proven once again. Our ancient alliance weathered this storm as it has weathered all storms. Teho waited. The council waited. Dreth continued. We acknowledge the ... assistance provided by various parties. All contributions have been noted. That was all. No names, no specifics. No recognition that humanity had done what the council could not. High Arbiter Velthus spoke next. The crisis has revealed weaknesses in our medical cooperation. We will form a new committee to address these issues. The committee will consist of representatives from the 12 council species. 12 species.
Not 13.
Humanity was still just an observer. Teho felt something shift inside him. It was not anger. It was something colder, something final. He returned to his quarters and found Captain Yuna and Dr. Yunji waiting for him. Yunji looked exhausted. She had given everything she had, and she had received nothing in return. They did not even say thank you, she said. Her voice was not bitter, just tired. So very tired. No, Teho said. They did not.
Did not.
I saved them. I saved millions of them, and they could not even say my name. Yuna put a hand on Yunji's shoulder. You did not save them for thanks. You saved them because it was right. I know. Youngji looked at her hands. Hands that had worked miracles. Hands that the galaxy would never acknowledge. But I thought, I hoped. She did not finish. She did not need to. Teho walked to the window and looked out at the station. 8 years he had been here. 8 years of watching and learning and waiting. 8 years of small hopes and smaller disappointments. I am going to send a message to Earth, he said quietly. Yuna straightened. What kind of message? The kind I should have sent years ago. He sat at his desk and wrote slowly, choosing each word with care. When he finished, he read it 3 times. Then he sent it to Secretary General Odahai. Her reply came within the hour. 3 words? Bring them home. Teho closed his eyes. For a long moment, he sat in silence. Then he opened his eyes, and they were clear. Decided. Captain, he said. Begin preparations for departure. Yuna nodded. She did not ask why. She did not need to. What about the council? Yunji asked. What will you tell them? Teho stood. He walked to the window one last time. The station glittered in the darkness, beautiful and cold and empty. I will tell them goodbye, he said. I will tell them that we tried, and I will tell them that we are done trying. They will not understand. No, they will not. He turned to face them. But someday they will. Someday when they need help, and we are not there to give it, they will remember this moment. They will remember that they had a chance to treat us as equals, and they will remember that they chose to laugh instead. Da-da-da! He began to prepare his final speech. Outside, the stars watched in silence, as they always had, as they always would, waiting to see what humanity would do next. The Grand Hall had never been so full. Word had spread that the humans were leaving. No one believed it at first. Species did not leave the Galactic Accord. The Accord was everything. It was safety, in trade, in law, in order. To leave was to become nothing. To leave was to die alone in the dark between stars. But the humans had requested a final address. And now every seat was filled. Counselors who had not attended sessions in centuries sat in their places. Observers from worlds that had forgotten they were members came to watch. Even the Vethany, the beings of light who had been silent for 600 years, flickered in their crystalline chamber. Ambassador Park Teho walked to the central platform. He moved slowly, not from age, but from purpose. Every step was measured. Every breath was calm. Captain Lee Yuna stood behind him with a small delegation of humans. Their faces showed nothing. Teho looked up at the council. 12 species. Millions of years of history. The oldest and most powerful civilizations in the known galaxy. And they had called humanity children. Honored Council, he began. His voice was soft, but it carried to every corner of the vast hall. 8 years ago, I stood on this platform for the first time. I came with hope. I came with dreams of friendship and partnership, and a shared future among the stars. He paused. The silence was complete. You welcomed us with words of patience. You told us to watch and learn. You told us that youth was not a crime, and we believed you. We sat in our observer seats. We took notes. We studied your ways. We tried to understand. High Arbiter Velthus shifted in his seat. His ancient eyes were unreadable. 3 years after we arrived, Dr. Kim Hanna offered you a solution to the energy crisis that still plagues the Outer Rim. Her science was sound. Her data was solid. You did not even look at it. You told her she was too young to understand. You told her to come back in a few centuries. Counselor Dreth made a small sound, but Taeho continued as if he had not heard. Dr. Choi Young-ji and her team saved 3 species from extinction. They worked without rest. They shared their knowledge freely. They asked for nothing in return. And when it was over, you could not even speak their names. You could not admit that children had done what elders could not. The words hung in the air. Some counselors looked away. Others stared straight ahead, their faces hard. We came to you with open hands, Taeho said. We offered friendship. We offered knowledge. We offered aid in your darkest hour. And what did you give us in return? He smiled. It was not a bitter smile. It was sad and tired and very, very human. You gave us laughter. You gave us silence. You gave us a seat where we could watch but never speak. Never vote. Never truly belong, Ambassador, Velthus interrupted, his voice smooth as always. If this is about recognition, I assure you the Council values all contributions. Taeho raised one hand. It was a gentle gesture, but it stopped Velthos mid-sentence. It is not about recognition, Taeho said. It was never about recognition. It was about respect. We asked only to be heard, to be seen as partners, not pets. To be treated as equals at this table. He shook his head slowly. You could not grant even that. He bowed. Not deeply. Not in submission. It was the bow of someone saying goodbye to an old house they would never visit again. Humanity withdraws from the Galactic Accord. We do not make demands. We do not issue threats. We do not ask for apologies or promises or one more chance. We simply leave. The hall erupted. Voices overlapped. Counselors shouted questions and objections, but Taeho did not stop. We wish you peace, he said, and his voice cut through the noise like light through darkness. We wish you prosperity. We wish you long lives and bright stars and everything you have ever wanted, but we will wish it from a distance. Because we have learned something in these 8 years. He turned and looked at Captain Yuna. She nodded once, and he continued. We have learned that some doors are not worth breaking down. Some tables are not worth sitting at. Some approval is not worth earning. And some laughter, he looked directly at Counselor Dreth. It's not worth answering. He stepped off the platform. Wait, a voice called out. It was Counselor Mirith, the youngest member of the council. She had been sympathetic to humans since the beginning. She was the only one who had ever voted to give them a voice. Ambassador Park, please reconsider. We can change. We can do better. Taeho stopped but did not turn around. You have had 8 years to do better, he said gently. You have had 8 years to see us as more than children playing at civilization. You chose not to, and now we choose something else. He walked toward the exit. The human delegation followed. Their footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. Mirith left her seat and followed them to the docking bay. The UEN's horizon waited there, engines warming, ready to carry humanity home. You could fight for your place, Mirith said. You could stay and prove them wrong. Change takes time. Captain Yuna smiled sadly. We have been proving ourselves since we arrived. We saved your people from plague. We offered solutions to your crises. We gave and gave and gave, and all we received was dismissal. She looked at the ship that had carried her across the stars 8 years ago. The ship that would carry her home. Some fights are not worth winning, she said. Some victories cost too much. We will not beg for respect. We will not perform tricks for approval. We will build something better. Something that is ours. Myrith's eyes were wet. I am sorry. For all of it. For everything. Teho turned and placed a hand on her shoulder. You have nothing to apologize for, counselor. You tried. That is more than most. What will you do now? We will go home. We will tell our people what we have learned. And we will start building. Building what? Teho looked out at the stars. 8 years ago, they had seemed cold and distant. Now, they seemed like possibilities. Like doors waiting to be opened. Like futures waiting to be written. A future, he said. Not the one we dreamed of when we came here. Not a future as part of your accord, but a future that belongs to us. A future where we do not have to beg for a seat at someone else's table. He boarded the ship. The doors closed. In the grand hall, Counselor Dreth waved one of his forehands dismissively. Let them go, he said. They will return. They need us. Every young species thinks they can survive alone. They always come back. No one answered him. No one was sure he was right. The UEN's Horizon undocked from the station and turned toward home. Inside, the human delegation watched the great station grow smaller and smaller until it was just another point of light among millions. Do you think we made the right choice? Yuna asked quietly. Teho watched Earth grow larger in the view screen. Home, after 8 long years. I think he said that we made the only choice we could. The only choice that let us keep our dignity, our pride, our hope. And if they were right, if we cannot survive alone, he smiled. It was a real smile this time, warm and certain, then we will fail on our own terms. But I do not think we will fail. I think we will surprise them. I think we will surprise everyone, including ourselves. The ship carried them home. And behind them, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what humanity would become. 50 years changed everything. The humans did not come back. That was the first surprise. Counselor Dreth had been so certain they would return, crawling and begging for readmission. But the years passed, and no human ships appeared at the station. No messages came asking for forgiveness. No ambassadors requested another chance. The silence was the loudest thing the council had ever heard. At first, they did not worry. Young species often needed time to realize their mistake. A decade meant nothing to civilizations that measured history in millions of years. But then the reports started coming in. The humans were building something. They had found the species. The council had ignored. The small ones. The weak ones. The races that had been rejected from the Accord for being too primitive, or too strange, or simply too unimportant. The forgotten peoples of the outer reaches, living in the darkness between stars. Humanity welcomed them all. They called it the Solarian Compact. It started with 12 species, then 20, then 50. Each one brought something the others needed. Each one was given an equal voice. There were no observer seats in the Compact. There was no laughter at the newcomers. Dr. Kim Hanna's stellar harvesting technology became the foundation of the Compact's energy grid. The method the Council had dismissed as childish fantasy now powered 100 worlds. Clean energy. Infinite energy. Energy that the Council was running out of. Dr. Choi Yoon-ji built the Compact's medical academy. Species that had never worked together now shared research freely. Diseases that had killed millions were cured within years. The silken rot that had devastated the Council worlds. Compact scientists developed a permanent vaccine. They offered to share it. The Council was too proud to accept, and all the while, the Galactic Accord crumbled. Without humanity's quiet presence, old hatreds resurfaced. The Corvani and the Mirani remembered why they had hated each other. Border disputes became small wars. Small wars became big ones. 3 species left the Accord entirely, taking their resources and their ships with them. The energy crisis that Dr. Kim had tried to solve grew worse. The outer rim collapsed entirely. Worlds went dark. Populations fled. Arbiter Velthus, 6,000 years old and older than some stars, sat in his empty chamber and watched his empire die. He sent a message to the Solarian Compact. It was the hardest thing he had ever done. We request dialogue. President Kongbora received the message on Earth. She was the third leader of the Compact, elected by all 57 member species. She was a tall woman with her grandmother's iron spine and her grandfather's steady hands. Her grandfather had been a diplomat who believed in peace. Her grandmother had been a secretary general who knew when to walk away. She read the message 3 times. Then she called her council together. "I want to talk," she said. Ambassador Shin Woo-jin leaned forward. He was young but experienced, having spent 20 years building relationships with species the Accord had abandoned. After 50 years of silence, after everything they did, "Yes. What do you want to do?" Biora looked out the window at the city below. Seoul had changed since her grandmother's time. It stretched toward the sky now, towers of glass and light reaching for the stars. Humans had built this. Humans and their partners in the Compact. "My grandmother used to tell me a story," she said, "about the day humanity left the Accord. She said Ambassador Park told them we were done trying to earn a seat at their table, that we would build our own instead. And we did. Yes, we did." She turned back to face her advisors. "So the question is not whether we should talk to them. The question is what we want from the conversation." The debate lasted 3 days. Some wanted revenge. Some wanted reparations. Some wanted to refuse the dialogue entirely and let the Accord collapse. But Biora remembered her grandmother's words, and she remembered something else. Something the old Secretary General had written in her journals. "Revenge is loud. We chose something quieter. We chose to become what they said we could never be." She sent her reply to Arbiter Velthos. "The Solarian Compact welcomes all who seek cooperation based on mutual respect. We do not demand apologies. We do not seek revenge. But we require equals at our table, not observers." Velthos read the message and felt something he had not felt in 6,000 years: shame. On the Corvani homeworld, the world Dr. Choi Yoonji had saved half a century ago, something remarkable was happening. Young Corvani were learning human language in schools. They were studying human history, human art, human music. They were applying to join the Compact. Counselor Dreth, ancient now and forgotten by his own people, watched from the window of his empty estate. The children ran past without looking at him. They were running toward the future. A future that had no place for his pride. He had laughed at the humans once. He had called them children. He had waved them away like insects. Now his own children were choosing to become like them on Earth. In a garden in what had once been called Korea, an old man sat watching the sunset. Park Tae-ho was 112 years old. His hair was white, his hands were spotted with age, but his eyes were still calm, still patient. Still strong, his granddaughter sat beside him, reading from a tablet. News from across the Compact. News from the crumbling Accord. News of change and growth and hope. "Grandfather," she said, "did you ever want revenge? For how they treated you?" Tae-ho smiled. It was the same smile he had worn 50 years ago, on the day he walked away from the Grand Hall. Quiet, certain, unbroken. "Revenge is for those who have nothing else," he said. "We had something better. We had each other. We had hope. We had the chance to build instead of destroy. But they hurt us. They laughed at us. And now they are asking to join what we built." He reached out and touched her hand. "That is not revenge, child. That is something greater. That is proving them wrong by living well. By building well. By becoming what they said we could never be." He looked up at the sky. The first stars were appearing. Somewhere out there, the Compact stretched across 1,000 worlds. Somewhere out there, species that had been forgotten were finding hope. Somewhere out there, the table humanity had built was growing larger every day. "We walked away in quiet," he said. "We did not shout or threaten or beg. We simply left. And that silence was louder than any words we could have spoken." His granddaughter was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, What happens now? With the Accord? Tejo closed his eyes. Now they learn what we learned 50 years ago. That respect cannot be demanded. It must be given freely. That partnership is not a gift from the powerful to the weak. It is a choice between equals. Will they learn? Some will. Some will not. But that is no longer our concern. He opened his eyes and smiled at her. Our concern is the future. Our future. The one we built with our own hands in the Compact Academy. A Mirani child and a human child studied together, sharing notes, sharing dreams in the Corvani shipyards. Engineers from 12 species built vessels that would carry them to new stars in the halls of the Solarian Compact. Representatives from 57 worlds debated and argued and compromised and built, and somewhere in the darkness of space, the old station of the Galactic Accord floated silent and half-empty. A monument to pride and laughter and lessons learned too late. The humans had walked away in quiet, and the galaxy had never stopped listening.